Iowa City, Iowa. We are live here from the Iowa Memorial Union here at the University of Iowa. Happy Tuesday, happy Valentine's Day Eve, and welcome on in to the February 13th edition of SOS. Sean on Sports here with your host, Sean P. We had yet another wild weekend of sport, mostly dominated by a singular game, which, don't worry, is going to be our main focus for today. As always, we will get into the six major headlines, and then I pretty much want to spend the entire rest of this show giving my thoughts on the Super Bowl and what exactly went down, because we have a lot to talk about today. So here we go. Six major headlines at number one. We already know this. Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Chiefs go back to back. We'll get to this later. That's all I'm going to say now, but that is the main headline to take away from this weekend is the Chiefs. They're the Chiefs. They're the dynasty. They're back. Number two, our weekly NHL Canucks tracker, as it's become at this point last week. We had, of course, the hockey show, which if you want to go see that, you can go check us out on the show's YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SeanOnSports with the handle right there. All of our episodes will be posted there along with clips and highlights. But last week we talked NHL and we talked about the Canucks and we kind of talked about the standings and how everything's going there. And they're still on top. They're still on top of the Western Conference, still on top of the NHL. Bruins are trailing straight behind them as far as points go. But the Bruins are having to worry about a suddenly tightening Eastern Conference. Florida's sneaking up on them. New York is sneaking up on them. While the Canucks are continuing to cruise the Western Conference, there's a couple people behind them, but I don't know if at this pace they're going to be able to catch them, really. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from there. Again, I said this all last week. They're a nice, fresh face. I would really like to see this. I'd like to see them make a big push in the playoffs, make a Stanley Cup run, because it's nice to have a team that, not everyone knows, because Lord knows we're all sick of watching Boston try to make it to the Stanley Cup every single year, or someone like Dallas. But anyway, that's the NHL for the moment. Nothing too crazy after that. And number three, I'm going to talk about this for a little bit here. The curse of the number two in women's college basketball is continuing. Sigh. Iowa women's basketball lost to Nebraska this past Saturday, 82-79, with Caitlin Clark finishing 8 points from the scoring record. This drops Iowa into second now for the number one seed in the Big Ten after this loss, because Ohio State only has one loss. Not a game we could afford to lose, because Ohio State, as far conference-wise, has been keeping neck and neck with us this whole way. And if Ohio State doesn't lose another game or two within the last 2-ish, 3-ish weeks of this season here, we're going to see the matchup on March 3rd. Ohio State will be here at Carver. I will be at that game. And it'll probably mostly just be if Ohio State doesn't lose and even if they do lose that game, it will be watching Iowa play for second. And this team does not deserve this. This team needs that number one seed. We need that dominance. We need that cementing. It seems like a lot of people continue to write off Iowa on how good of a team they are because they can't seem to get number one seeds. Now, they win the tournament, of course, and I know it's not about getting the number one seed, but I feel like there's a certain point of legitimacy needed so that finally anyone who isn't already on this train can wake up and say, okay, this is it. And this loss, a lot like Iowa's other losses this year, really could have been avoided if not for mistakes on my end. My thing about this game was this. So obviously you're going to Nebraska, you're going to Lincoln. Tough crowd, Big Ten atmosphere. We'd already beaten Nebraska pretty handily before. I was at that game when they played at Carver. I want to say it was 3 weeks ago. And Nebraska, though, when they came here to Carver, they put up a good fight. I'm not even going to lie about that. The first half, they really had us. And then Caitlin Clark did Caitlin Clark things, and Iowa solidified. and we beat them by a double-digit margin. But I knew that it was going to be more difficult coming into Lincoln. Another sellout crowd for Lincoln. I believe this was a record men's or women's basketball. I mean, the Caitlin Clark effect is real. I love seeing it week in and week out. Um, but I think Iowa had a flaw in the game plan for both things they could and could not control. Because if I was Nebraska, and I know they had this, that they had us in the first half of when they came to Carver. So they knew they could hang with us. It was just for how long. Could they sustain hanging with us? And sure enough, they were able to do that. They were able to also take advantage of Molly Davis being out. Molly Davis has been dealing with an illness the past 2 games, and so the kind of secondary ball handler, secondary scorer, if you will, was out this game. So Iowa, guard depth wise, was a little off because when Davis and Clark are on the floor, those are the main two scorers up at the top, and then of course you got Stolke down low. Martin and Marshall are more of the glue players. They're more defensive people. They help get the off-ball movement going. But when there's not Davis to back up the scoring, the guard depth for Iowa is not. We're not that deep as far as experience and consistent scoring. And couple that with the fact that Caitlin Clark is trying to not break the scoring record at Nebraska. She wants to break it at home. The team has said that they're trying to break it at home. She's trying to break it at home. So when Clark lays off the gas and you don't have someone who can pick up the scoring because Stolke was clamped up for most of the night, and her 47 points last week were incredible. But that is definitely a one-off for her. She's more of a 15, 16 points kind of game. Again, not taken away from the 47 points because that was absolutely incredible. That was just spectacular to watch. But and with Clark not being there to help feed that, because again, a lot of the other guards are a lot of off-ball movers. They try and it's basically when Clark doesn't get the open look, they try to get in the mid-range or they try to get in the backdoor cut. And so with Molly Davis gone, not being able to facilitate or create the open shots, a lot of it had to fall on Martin or Clark trying to force the ball to Stolke down low. And they weren't getting the open looks, and Nebraska was ready for it. The Penn State game where, of course, Stolke dropped 47, you could see that they had picked up a lot on Clark's assist game and because Clark likes to get these in transition, these contested, fast, quick passes in transition. And Nebraska was able to do the same thing. They were able to pick up on that, and they were really able to shut everything down. And I say all this to say that Iowa offensively, the adjustment that they made as Clark approached the scoring record was less than satisfactory. It was not what I wanted to see. And I know that, again, you're in a hostile crowd. You're susceptible to runs. You're susceptible to the atmosphere. But there should have been a clearer, better game plan for that, in my opinion, than whatever they put out there, especially because they knew that Clark was going to slow up as she got to the record. Now, I 100% want, she's going to now, but I wanted her to break it at Carver. But at the same time, you got to win the game. And Lisa Bluter had said this too before the game. You have to go and you have to win the game. That is the number one priority. You have Ohio State to catch. Ohio State, who has the tiebreaker on you, you have to keep pace with them. And so I didn't necessarily like the decision just to lay off in the gas in the fourth quarter. I'm pretty sure Caitlin Clark had 0 points. Theoretically, she had 5, 6 more points to give, and then she wouldn't have to touch the record. And those points would have been massive had she had them. Had she decided to take a drive from the lane, take a 3, take a contested shot, even get to the line. That would have been good. So all that to say, I was disappointed with Iowa's performance. Or not performance. No. I was disappointed with the game plan and the lack of adjustment. And I want to give credit to Nebraska as they played a good game. But I think that now that Clark will break it at Carver, I think all the restraints and probably the pressure will be off and she can just go back to going to town. So I'm going to be excited to watch that. But yeah, it's just the curse of number 2 in women's college basketball this year is continuing. In South Carolina, if Iowa won this game, South Carolina was playing UConn, maybe you see UConn do something. No, 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 no. South Carolina destroyed UConn. Absolutely wrecked them. So I think we're going to have another situation like last year where you see South Carolina go all the way through, and it's going to take someone like Iowa to stop them because at this point, no one else is stopping them, especially not in the SEC. Um, oh, and I want to shout out Sydney Fulter coming off the bench. That is the one thing with Molly Davis being out. Sydney Fulter has come in and she has made a massive impact. Sydney Fulter, she has already been great on coming off the bench, being the sixth woman off the bench. Holy moly, her in the starting spot fits perfectly. That she is an absolute dog. Offense, defense, off ball, on ball, rebound. She has done exactly what is needed and then some. These past 3 or 4 games have been Sydney Fulter, like her and Martin, like glue games. She has been incredible. So Sydney, if you're on the real off chance that you're listening to this, absolute dog. Want to shout out your performance. Continue to do well with that. It's been incredible to watch you play. And I think that you will probably see some more lineup mix-ups with you in the starting lineup here soon if you continue to perform in the same way. Absolutely love to see it. Moving on to number 4, we took a little bit there. On Sunday, the former 16-time WWE champion turned actor John Cena, play the theme song in your head, you all know where it is, made his official amateur baseball debut for the Savannah Bananas to much applause. Cena came out showing off his championship belt before squatting as low as possible in order to minimize his own strike zone, and then he then got called out on strikes. The umpire dropped the people's elbow as he called Cena out on strikes, and then Cena looked like he was going to fight the umpire and then rush the mound, but he eventually just ran up to the pitcher, held his arm up, congratulated him. He said that it was a great time. He had a great time in front of the crowd. Loved the atmosphere, loved the Bananas culture, and that, he also said that as he's getting up there in age, because I think he's in his mid 40s now, that WWE is going to wind down for him, and especially on his body. I mean, that takes a toll, but doing something like the Savannah Bananas, even though he said that he hadn't played amateur baseball since he was 15 years old, was a really great experience, and he likes that. And I think that's another, big show performance kind of thing that he could really get into because I think his personality would be fantastic for the Savannah Bananas baseball and the product that they have. And I think they could really market that as well. And I just want to say a fun little side note. I have been to Savannah and I bought myself a Savannah Bananas t-shirt in Savannah. And I should have worn it today. And I don't know why I didn't. And now I'm upset at that. You guys listening now can't see it, but I'm not wearing my Savannah Bananas t-shirt. And they were not in town when my family and I were there in Savannah, and I was really upset because it would have been fantastic to go see them. I believe they were playing the Macon Bacon at the time in Macon, Georgia, which Macon Bacon, shout out to that mascot. That's honestly equally as good. Number 5, we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have moved into second in the Eastern Conference, almost seemingly out of nowhere, on the backs of a 9-game winning streak that actually came to an end with a loss to the 76ers by 2 points, literally as I was writing this last night. So they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. But they were undefeated in the new year. They lost by only 10 points. I have to admit that was really unexpected, like almost completely out of nowhere for me. I think we all expected the Cavs to finish somewhere at like the 4th, 5th, 6th in the East, especially with all those like Donovan Mitchell trade rumors and, stuff wasn't congealing and all that. But they've got something going here. We'll see if they can sustain it. I mean, it's the Eastern Conference, so anything could happen. They could keep going and get the number 1 seed, although doubtful. Or they could completely fall off a cliff. Again, it's the Eastern Conference. We have no idea what's going on. So it's interesting to see what's happening. But good for Cleveland, though. If they could put up a 2 seed, that'd be really nice and bring some playoff basketball back to Cleveland. And then at number 6, football is over for now, NFL football. But don't worry, the UFL is coming soon. We've talked about that the past 2 weeks on the show. We're going to continue to advertise it here. And then the MLS will be back soon as well. So whichever football you crave, we're going to cover it right here on SOS as we get closer to those seasons. But now with those done, we are going to talk about right after this, the Super Bowl. And we're back. All right. Main story time. Y'all know what it is. The Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58, Las Vegas, Nevada. Holy moly. What a game. Just what a game. In a game that, in complete honesty, for the first two and a half, three quarters, I thought we were going to have another Super Bowl 53 like dud on our hands. The 13-3 Patriots versus Rams Super Bowl. I thought we were going to have another one. Barstool Clemson even added Barstool Iowa in saying, man, didn't realize we were getting a Big Ten West game in the Super Bowl, which that one hurt, but they weren't wrong. Um, but wow. Overtime, almost double overtime, took it the distance. What a finish. What an absolute finish. And I want to start just kind of by talking about some of my reactions to the game in general. Then we'll get into the teams, then we'll get into the stats, and kind of some of the impacts of this game later. But I just, as far as reaction goes, and I talked about this when I think it was 2 weeks ago on our episode, on our show 2 weeks ago. I know that this is the matchup that probably America didn't necessarily want. Now, for those of you who are listening for the first time, I've said this before. I'm from Missouri. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I am absolutely over the moon at this. But I just want to look somewhat objectively, taking my Chiefs fan bias aside out of this. I know a lot of people come conference championship game really wanted to see a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl. And I agree, I would have liked to have seen the Lions in the Super Bowl. But as far as the talent and the product that was able to be put on the field, as far as the matchup goes, this is the best Super Bowl we could have asked for. Because you have that 49ers offense with every conceivable weapon on offense, and a quarterback with nothing to lose who is continuing to prove himself over and over and over again. And we're going to get into Brock Purdy as well. Do not worry. I have a lot to say about that. Versus, Patrick Mahomes, the man, but more importantly, this defense, this Kansas City defense, a Steve Spagnuolo-led defense. This is what you could have asked for. I know that the Ravens also had a number one defense, and I know that the Lions also had a top offense. But both of those units were incredibly raw. Where with the 49ers and the Chiefs, you had two units at the top of their game with the best of their experiences under two, highly regarded defensive and offensive minded coordinators and coaches respectively. Like, this is the best. Stats wise, they might not have been the best, but play wise, experience wise, players wise, this is the best you can get. These are the guys. And this Super Bowl, I think, really lived up to the product that it was putting out on the field, even if it's a repeat. Even if it was a repeat. I don't care. I don't know why people were so much in arms about that. Even if it was a repeat. Both of these teams, these are completely new look teams from the first one anyway. Because Chris Jones is the only starter from the Super Bowl against the 49ers the last time. The only defensive starter, excuse me. And Patrick Mahomes, obviously, Travis Kelce, obviously, and I think Mecole Hardman were the only ones from the offensive side of the ball. I might be missing a couple linemen. I'm sorry if I am. But Chiefs are a new look. The Niners, no longer have Jimmy G. Their defense is completely reworked. Whole new unit, completely reworked. Their offense obviously has had Kittle, had Juszczyk. Both of them, I think, scored in the last one. But they have a new look, especially with McCaffrey too, because I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. I think that with the introduction of McCaffrey to this offense, Juszczyk and Kittle have definitely taken a step back, almost to the point where they're really non-contributors when they're not blocking or making chunk slant passes. So this is the best that we could have asked for. This is incredible. I think that now we can pretty much, if Mahomes stays on this track, We're putting Mahomes into the GOAT conversation. Mahomes is Jordan. Like, he is the Jordan now. We are watching a Jordan style run happen in real time. And I was listening to the Rich Eisen show right before this, just getting some, seeing some perspective. And one of the guys on there had a good point that I think we can say that Patrick Mahomes, in only his sixth season as a starter, has now put himself as the second slot, the second guaranteed spot on the quarterback Mount Rushmore. Him and Brady, the two other ones you can debate for days, but I don't think anyone after this can say that Mahomes is not on the GOAT trajectory, that he's not the best quarterback in the league, that he's not the best player in the league right now, and he's not one of the best athletes on the planet right now that we are seeing. And as someone who watches European soccer, I follow and I watch European soccer, but I can't even tell you an athlete right now. Maybe Messi's campaign in his 2022-2023 campaign is the only comparable thing I have right now to a level of greatness that we just are not used to seeing. This is something special. This is something absolutely. And we can now officially say the dynasty is here. This is the Chiefs dynasty. This is the Chiefs kingdom. This is who we're dealing with. They toppled the evil empire, the old regime, the new empire. Although I don't want to call them an empire, guys. As a Chiefs fan, I feel like we are infinitely more likable than the Patriots and Tom Brady. I mean, you guys can let me know, but come on, we can't be as bad. But we are the new standard. The Chiefs are the new dynasty. That is a fact. And I think they're well in a position to three-peat, and we'll get to that later. I also want to say that terrible scoreboard by CBS, just like real quick. Awful, horrible looking scoreboard. That is like someone took the base scoreboard from an editing software, like the free one, and just slapped it on there. That was an ugly scoreboard. CBS's scoreboard before was perfect. It was literally perfect. Like, there is no reason to change it. And, I know that they change it every 3 years when they get the Super Bowl, but it's like, that was the best you could do. I mean, ugly, awful scoreboard. And then I talked about this a little bit before too when it comes to experience. And I had this thought after I finished writing, but I had to put this in again, that this was a game between championship DNA and experience versus best talent when it comes to the paper, when it comes to the stats. The 49ers have the talent. They have the weapons. On paper, everything favors the 49ers. They have nothing to lose. They have the mind, they have the body, they have the strength of a championship team, of the best team. And they have shown it that they could go through the best teams, unless you're the Baltimore Ravens. And they were the paper team. These were the weapons on paper. But all of that on paper, and they did put up stuff on the field to back this up. I'm not discounting that at all. But everything the paper says doesn't matter, because you got to get into an arena with someone who is experienced, with someone who has the DNA, with someone who is on a different level. And you're on the biggest stage in the world, the biggest television stage. It came out, this was the most watched program or a single event in American television history, averaging, I believe it was 123.4 million viewers concurrently, and at a peak of 200 million viewers. But experience won out in the day. The championship DNA won out in the day. At the end of the day, they had an answer for almost everything, and the Niners took them to the limit. It's not like this was, a Peyton Manning versus the Legion of Boom kind of number one offense, number one defense debacle of a Super Bowl that was. They took them the distance, but the Chiefs, they had the mental, experiential edge, the championship DNA, and it also helps when you have the greatest player, but to beat what's on talent. And so I want people to stop putting the Chiefs as underdogs. 3 times before this game, they were the underdogs. They were the underdogs in this game. Stop betting against the Chiefs. You have to. You have to stop betting against them. Because I said this at the beginning of the playoff run. The Chiefs were the defending, well, are, but like were the defending Super Bowl champions. They are innocent until proven guilty. Regular season aside, they made it to the playoffs. So everything they did in the regular season doesn't matter because they made it. Slate is clean. You are innocent until proven guilty. And they have not been proven guilty. The defending champs did what defending champs do. They came back and they defended. They put up a spectacular title defense. Arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, title defense in NFL history, especially looking through what they had to go through for this playoffs, especially looking at that. And so the Chiefs, you cannot count them out anymore. I believe they open up as second favorites behind the 49ers again, but that's fine. The Chiefs aren't, they're no stranger to that. I feel like the Bills every year seem to open up as favorites, but they are innocent until proven guilty. They have what it takes to get done what needs to be done. And it was an incredible game that showed that. And so I want to talk the Niners first. I want to go into the teams now. And we'll have a break interrupting us here, but I'm just going to get to it. So I'm going to talk the 49ers first. First of all, Christian McCaffrey. What an incredible athlete. What a player, what a runner on the biggest stage. He continued to produce as he has done all year long. Bruising, impactful, yards after catch equivalent, whatever that is, like runs after contact. He put up he had the touchdown running through the screen from Juwan Jennings in the second quarter to score the first touchdown of the game. Christian McCaffrey had an incredible game, although I will say that fumble he had at the beginning, really uncharacteristic. I don't know if in all my years of watching football, I have seen live Christian McCaffrey fumble a football. He is an incredible protector of it, doesn't give it up at all, and I think that also speaks to the Chiefs' smothering defense. But again, we're going to get there. But he played an incredible game. And I'm going to get to this later, but Shanahan let off the gas with him, and I don't know why, because he was the hot hand. But McCaffrey had a very solid game, minus that weirdly uncharacteristic fumble. Then Brock Purdy. I know he's a state guy. We don't want to, give all the credit and things to him, but I have to applaud Brock Purdy in his performance. Brock Purdy, second year guy, didn't know if he was going to be starting, has led this offense basically to perfection all year. And he comes up in the biggest game, composed, poised, and he takes the Chiefs, he takes Mahomes, he takes him the distance. Now, I think that he's still very young. I think there's still some work to be done, and I definitely don't think at this stage he has quite what he should have to get things done. But he put up, for what it was worth, for the situation he was in, he put up an absolutely wonderful performance. I think people need to stop with the Brock Purdy game manager allegation. They need to stop with him being a fraud. Brock Purdy is the guy. He is a real deal quarterback who has proven he can start. This was his second year, his first full year as a starter. He was Mr. Irrelevant. Lord knows we don't need to hear that again. But to bring his team as what he is, to bring his team to the spot that they did, that was incredible. I want to absolutely 100% commend Brock Purdy for that. We are going to be taking a quick break, but we're going to get right back, I promise, after that break. And I also want to, real quick, shout out another show on our network here, Pop Culture Recap with Ben Ulrichs, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on KRUI. Be sure to go check that out every single Wednesday. Come support his show, support the station. Pop Culture Recap every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Anyway, back to the 49ers, back to Purdy. A couple things I noticed. One, again, young quarterback, and he's facing a fearsome D line, but he folded pretty much every time Spags blitzed him. And that was how Kansas City was really able to work the defense. He had some uncharacteristic incompletions. I think there's some big game development that he still needs. And I think he probably could have been an MVP candidate if they won. Although Juwan Jennings was good. Bosa was good in the first half. Moody, the kicker, was really good as well. But I liked what I saw, and I think he's going to learn and grow from that. He's going to be good. Bosa, whichever Bosa brother it is, I always forget which one it is, but was incredible this game. First half, especially in his pressures. Like if the game ended at the first half, he probably could have been MVP. He was incredible. And that 49ers D line was just blending the O line of the Chiefs. And I was really terrified we were going to have a Super Bowl 55 situation on our hands the way the line was going and Mahomes was getting pressured in the first half. I mean, he was, woof. That was rough. And the defense there was doing incredible in the first half as well. Chase Young actually did something for once. I thought whenever they traded for him from Washington in November that like, holy crap, this is the D line to beat. I mean, they're going to be scary. But Chase Young hadn't really done anything, but he ended up getting a sack on Mahomes, or I don't know if he got a sack, but he forced a drop back with either Mahomes or not McKinnon, sorry, Pacheco, and it was a big time loss of yards. But they did really well, and I think that coordinator Steve Wilks called probably the best game he could by his standards. I think that he probably is not on the mind that Steve Spagnuolo is, and he was then working with injuries. But I think for what he had and for what he could do, he called the best game plan he could have done, which is impressive from Steve Wilks in complete honesty, because he was Mizzou's defensive coordinator in 2021, and he had the 131st of 132nd or 132 defenses in college. To go from that to coordinating a game with the best team almost taking down Patrick Mahomes, that's impressive where he's come from. So I liked his game plan, but I think at the end, once Mahomes had a read on it and once the O-line kind of solidified, it was kind of over. And also, I think Dre Greenlaw, non-contact Achilles injury, getting, just trying to run out after special teams play, but basically, getting sniped right there. That is super unfortunate. You hate to see a non-contact, non-playing injury take out your Super Bowl, because it could be your one shot. It could be your one shot, and he got taken down, and that's a big hole in the 49ers defense getting taken down right there. It's just terrible to see. I wish and hope all the best for him, because that was awful. And I think a lot of people might blame Shanahan or talk about Shanahan now moving over to the head coach, that he lost a third Super Bowl, and he blew another lead, and he can't beat Mahomes and Reed, and he can't get out of this choker thing. In all honesty, I don't think this one's on him, and I really don't. And here's why I think that. He called a fairly flawless game. He really did. But he had to deal with, losing or, having a muffed punt return, having a blocked extra point, having a rookie, basically a rookie quarterback, and scheming against a Chiefs defense who is number 2 or 3 in the league, with Steve Spagnuolo on the other end. Steve Spagnuolo, especially after this game, the greatest coordinator ever behind him, and we'll get to Spags later. But he, for all he could, he called a pretty good game. My one thing, and a lot of people were saying this on some other sports shows and stuff, it was curious to see why he wasn't running with McCaffrey in the second half, specifically in the third quarter. And like I said earlier, McCaffrey was the hot hand. Why do you not run with him? He got pass happy in the third quarter. And McCaffrey was not running this. And I know Colin Cowherd had said this too, that what are you doing? Give it to McCaffrey. Give it to your guy who's been gashing the Chiefs defense for 7-8 yard runs pretty much the entire game to that point. And instead he went to the pass, and now you're passing into guys like Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, who had incredible games. Absolutely incredible performances from a coverage standpoint in the secondary. And then also the deferring on the coin toss. Dude, what are you doing? Or not, taking the ball. Well, what are you doing? Even Chris Jones in the Chiefs D lineman afterwards said, dude, What were you doing? You want to take the ball, let them hopefully hold them to a field goal or a touchdown because you're going to get the ball anyway. You want to be the last one holding the ball. You want to be the one that is in control. And your defense, especially at the end of that second half, they almost gave up a game-winning drive in regulation. I don't know if you would trust that. I question the decision. I question it a lot. And then, of course, Debo Samuel got injured, and he was in and out of the game, and that hurt. And the utilization or lack thereof, I should say, of George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. Like, where were they offensively, pass catching, runs wise? They were nowhere to be found. Juszczyk in the first quarter had a catch for, I think it was almost 20 yards. And Kittle he converted a fourth down, which was clutch, but he had 2 receptions for 4 yards. And Juszczyk had like the 1 reception. And after that, there were no shows. Kittle had a big game, but it got called back by a holding penalty. And and then you take McCaffrey out in the third quarter. It's like, what are you doing? And I know that with the introduction of McCaffrey, they've been running Juszczyk and Kittle less. They've been using them more as blockers. But again, you have all the weapons. You have to utilize them. And they didn't. And I found that really interesting. Poor kicker for San Francisco, longest field goal in Super Bowl history at 55 yards, only to have that broken literally a quarter later. That kind of sucks, but hey, at least you held the record for a quarter. The blocked extra point, nothing you could do, but the special teams, that was the one thing that you could honestly point to that let them down was San Francisco down was the special teams. It's like, come on, guys. They haven't been talked about all year because there haven't been any mistakes, but of course in the biggest game. So that's something I think that they may have to fix, which is it's a strength of theirs. It really is. And also Trent Williams, dude, getting flagged, I think 3 times in this game, including twice in a row. Like, dude, you are the greatest lineman in the game. You have the best discipline, the experience, the veteran mentality. And you get called like that twice in a row and 3 times in a game, like costly mistake. Big time costly mistake, especially with the rookie quarterback behind there. But all of that to say, I'm impressed with this 49ers team. They're going to be back. 100% they will be back, especially with how bad the NFC, or I don't want to say bad, but weak the NFC is. If they're able to retain even 80% of the talent they had from this year, they're going to be back. Purdy's the guy. Shanahan is the coach. I think he is. Lynch is the GM. McCaffrey is the runner, and they're going to have every tool and weapon to do this again. The Eagles, who I honestly thought were going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, completely fell off a cliff. Just completely fell off a cliff. And I think the 49ers, barring some mass injuries, they're going to be the ones back. And they're the only ones, I think, who could beat the Chiefs talent-wise if you continue to match them head-to-head. But I was impressed with this. I was impressed with the Niners. They had some glaring, obvious mistakes, some things they had to fix, some questionable stuff, but it's, you know what, it's okay. They did a great job, all things considered. And now, we move over to my Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City. Guys, holy moly. Legacy game for Travis Kelce. Legacy game for Andy Reid. Legacy game for Patrick Mahomes. The big three, you could put Steve Spagnuolo into this too. Like the big four, the quad, if you will, of, Chiefs pillars. Every one of them put on a masterclass in this game. At just continuing to cement their legacies. And Travis Kelce, a lot of people had speculated, is he going to retire? And he talked about, football's done a lot on my body and, all that. But he's back. Why would you not come back? And Andy Reid, again, people were talking about retiring. And he's like, why would I retire? Andy Reid is doing something that he loves and that he is succeeding. And he has a chance. I think he's close to some kind of wins record. Not the all-time wins record, but some kind of like postseason something record or whatever, and I think he wants to get that too. But dude, he is in a position to be in a three-peat. The Chiefs are in the three-peat position. You can't retire now. You can't call it quits. Excuse me. You can't call it quits now. And I'm glad that they're coming back. And then, wow, Steve Spagnuolo on the biggest stage again, again, put on a masterclass in defense with a masterclass of a defense he has had all year. Steve Spagnuolo is the guy I would want in my corner every single time for any game on defense. This man has he has literally taken down every giant in the modern NFL era. He has taken them down, every single one, and he has taken most of them down on the biggest stage too. He has been nothing short of miraculous with what he has done and how he continues with big games, different levels of defense to win these games and contain these guys. He was able to force the pressure on Purdy. He was able to force the pressure on McCaffrey. He was able to limit Juszczyk and Kittle. Debo and Ayuk got limited partially because of injury, but partially because Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed were playing the games of their lives. Like, incredible games. And the Chiefs defense, which has been their strength all year, this was the culmination. Everyone on that front, every single person on that defensive 11 was embodying the heart and soul and brilliance of Steve Spagnuolo as a coordinator. From Chris Jones to Leo Chenal to what's the guy's name? The Pinnell guy whose first name I can't remember on the front four, playing absolutely incredible. To shout out to Mizzou alumni Nick Bolton and Willie Gay in the linebacking core, in the middle linebacking core, locking it down, spying McCaffrey, making sure there weren't any runs. And then, like I said, McDuffie, Sneed, Reed, all in the back. I cannot rave enough about what a beautiful defensive masterclass that Steve Spagnuolo put on. What a performance. He with this game, as if it already wasn't, because again, he has taken down the greatest that the modern NFL has had to offer. But this puts him, in my book, as one of the greatest, if not the greatest coordinators of all time, offense and defense aside. And if I'm the Chiefs, I mean, there's no head coaching things open, but you got to pay the man. Continue to pay the man because what he did was incredible, absolutely incredible. I had this again. I had to interject in my own notes here after I was finished writing this, but Andy Reid used corn dog for the win 2 years in a row, and 2 years in a row, people still didn't see it coming. I saw it real time, and I was like, that is the play that they ran twice against the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year, and it worked twice. And he does it this year to win the game. And it's not that hard of a play, but it was hilarious to me that Reed had waited all game and he pulled out corn dog, same trick, twice, executed it to perfection, and the Kansas City Chiefs get their second Super Bowl in a row. We're going to be right back right after this message. We're not going to have the 6 teams in distress because I just want to continue to rave about the Super Bowl. That's what we're going to continue talking about. We will be right back after this short message. All right, coming back, we are talking about the Super Bowl. Once again, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs here. And again, I just said, they used corn dog for the win twice, which I think is just hilarious and incredible. And Andy Reid is an incredible coach. Just putting that in the back pocket for later, didn't see it coming. 49ers defense didn't see it coming. That's the game. And I said this earlier about how the Chiefs this year especially may have had one of the hardest runs to the Super Bowl ever. And they did it, not necessarily off the backs of their offense, because again, everyone has talked all year, we talked this to death about the Chiefs had a subpar offense with almost literally no weapons. And so the defense had to carry. The defense this postseason faced the league's 6th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd best offenses, and only gave up an average of about 17.5 points in these games. Spagnuolo, masterclass, especially in the age of the high-flying, electrifying offenses, and where defense is, it's got to be less physical, and you're kind of nerfed with all these rules and stuff like that. What an incredible that statistic to me is mind blowing. That is just wow. I'm in awe of that. And if the Chiefs can afford to continue to keep these men and a young defense too, again, last year when they won the Super Bowl, they had the youngest defense, or like the average youngest defense in the league, mostly made up of rookies and draft picks that they had. Same deal here. Pretty much the same deal. And look at what they have done. That you could keep this defense around for a while, but you have got to pay the man, Chris Jones. He said he wants to say, but you got to pay the man. You got to pay L'Jarius Sneed. You got to pay Trent McDuffie. I know Nick Bolton's on his rookie contract, but you got to pay the man for that. What a performance. What an absolute performance. But I'm going to get off the defensive talk here. We're going to talk about the offense a little bit more here. The O-line was atrocious, and it had me worried. Joe Tooney, of course, was out with, I think it was he had a finger injury, and then he had a pectoral injury, which kept him out, which is unfortunate. So there's a bit of a shakeup there. I think Allegretti came in for him, and like I said earlier, it really looked like it was Super Bowl 55 for a moment. It had me scared, because that's the one thing you have to do against Mahomes. You beat Mahomes by forcing him into scrambling. Not necessarily pressure, but just putting him into scrambling, And that's what the 49ers were doing, and the Chiefs were having a hard time getting a lot of good chunk plays on offense, because just no one was open, and they were forcing Mahomes out of the pocket. And so I was really worried. But they were able to solidify. They were able to come together when it mattered most. Although they did allow, I think it was like 2 or 3 sacks, and Mahomes hadn't been sacked all postseason, so that was a little concerning. For me, I want to shout out to the receiving corps. These guys had been doubted all year. They'd been talked about and dragged all year. That outside of Kelsey, maybe Rashee Rice a couple times, like who is he throwing to, MVS and some of these other guys. But when it mattered the most, like Mecole Hardman, out of nowhere, dude, caught the game-winning one. They traded for him midseason after trading him away. They performed on the biggest stage, so that, even though we can talk about all their drops from all the time, it's like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter, because they won the game and they caught the ball when it mattered most, although I think it was probably the best decision to leave out Kadarius Toney. I saw a thing this morning about like every Kadarius Toney drop this season, and it was like, oh my goodness. They made the right choice with keeping him out. I know there's a lot of other stuff surrounding that, but I think from just an offense standpoint, that was the right decision. But way to go on the receivers, and way to go on the special teams for Kansas City as well. Tommy Townsend was a dog. I know Pat McAfee was really loving what Tommy Townsend had to do, but Tommy Townsend was dog punting all night. Harrison Butker, automatic. I mean, talk about another guy that you got to pay. You got to pay this man. Harrison Butker has done nothing but serve the Chiefs almost without fail for the last 4.5 seasons. And he has done incredible. He has done absolutely incredible. He was incredible in this game. And he, instead of Jake Moody, now holds the record for the longest field goal in Super Bowl history at 57 yards. And if the game came down to if the game came down to a game-winning field goal, and he already had 3 field goals by that point, he would have been my MVP. I mean, he was automatic. He was automatic all postseason. What a job by him. And again, if I'm the Chiefs, you got to pay the man. You got to pay the man. And you know what? Now we gotta talk about this. But like Mahomes, Patrick Lavon Mahomes II, on the biggest stage, he was Mahomes, and there is nothing else to say. He put up yet another game of his life. I would argue that probably last year's Super Bowl performance was probably his best game, like Super Bowl wise, stats wise, but he continued to show poise, composure, making things happen. He is inevitable. At the end of the game, when it's like in basketball, taking the final shot, who do you want it? Everyone will pretty much say Jordan all the time. Same thing. When I have a game-winning drive, I do not care. I don't care if it's Montana. I don't care if it's Elway. I don't care if it's Brady. Whoever you put there. Now you cannot say that you don't want Mahomes doing that. Mahomes, out of basically nothing of an offense this year, led a game-tying drive in or in regulation, excuse me, and it should have been a game-winning drive. And he leads the game-winning drive all the way down in overtime, and especially in a struggling first half, because the Chiefs have had problems with that all year, getting into the red zone. At the end of the day, he did what only he could do. Only he could do as a quarterback in this league. And he put himself, like I said, and like they said on the Rich Eisen show, you can now definitively say he is the second confirmed locked spot on the quarterback Mount Rushmore behind Tom Brady. You cannot deny his game any longer. It's impossible. It's impossible. And again, I'm not saying this as a Chiefs fan. I'm saying this objectively as a football fan, as a sports fan. What he has done in his first 6 seasons. I need to get this stat up. Where did I have it? Here it is. This is the stat that ESPN put on immediately after. Patrick Mahomes, in his first 7 seasons, 6 as a starter, joins Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Guy LaFleur, Stan Musial, Mickey Mantle, and Joe DiMaggio as the only American athletes to win 3 championships and 2 MVPs in their first 7 seasons. That is unreal greatness. In only 7 seasons. Realistically, Mahomes isn't even halfway through his own career yet. And this is what we're seeing now. If he retired today, he is already a Hall of Fame quarterback. Even, stats and nothing aside, gameplay, accomplishments, image-wise, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback now. But what he has done in only 6 seasons as a starter, 6 AFC championship games, it is unfathomable, the greatness we're seeing here. And I want a lot of NFL pundits do this, especially after this game. Stop putting Mahomes with guys like Allen, with guys like Lamar, with guys like Burrow, with the other quarterbacks. Stop. He is on a completely different stratosphere. Completely different than those guys. Every single one of those guys had their shot to beat Mahomes, had their shot to be the guy to, etch their way in, but they couldn't. They all lost to Mahomes. Now, no. I know Burrow had that AFC championship game. He did win that one, but he had his shot at a Super Bowl and he lost it. He lost it, and the next year the Chiefs beat him again. So he had his shot. Couldn't take it. This is like watching Jordan in the 90s. We are seeing this beautiful new era of young, exciting, electrifying quarterbacks, especially in the AFC. But it's going to be like Jordan's Eastern Conference in the 90s. You have these incredible stars, and they're going to all retire with 1 to maybe no championships because this is Mahomes' league. This is his conference. This is his league. This is his sport. What an incredible performance. What a dynasty cementing performance. I cannot get over that enough. And Mahomes now can officially say he is on that pedestal that some people were hesitant to put him on. He is right there. That is him. Finally, just to kind of wrap things up here, back-to-back champs for Kansas City, first time in 20 years. KC, I think, is in a perfect position to three-peat, 100%. KC's going to go to the wide receiver room this offseason, so they're only going to get better despite who they have to cut for salary cap wise. I think that this game started as a dud. I said it earlier. It looked like a Big Ten West kind of football game, but it had an absolutely classic ending. Overtime for only the second time in history. First overtime or Super Bowl history. Excuse me. First playoff overtime with the new rules. Longest Super Bowl game by game time by quarter time in history. And I don't think this is the last time we're going to see the Chiefs and Niners face off again. I really don't think so. I think we conceivably are going to get a third Super. It could even happen next year. We could have a straight up rematch, and it would not surprise me one bit. But I think these are the two people because the AFC, again, guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty, excuse me, in the AFC for Mahomes. And the NFC, unless someone comes out of nowhere, it's the 49ers conference to lose, especially with the Eagles falling off the way they did. These are the teams to watch now. These are the guys to watch. And I'm not a betting man, I'm not a gambling man, but I would say I'm putting my money on the Chiefs for the three-peat. I think that they're going to do it. And I will say at this time next year, if that happens, you heard it here first. And it pains me, it pains me to think about this, that people are, think we can say that for the rest of the NFL that the Chiefs they're the new villains. They are the new villains for whatever reason you want to paint them as. I think that they're the villains now, which, it makes me upset as a Chiefs fan because, again, like I said, it's like, come on, dude, we are really not as hateable as the Patriots, and arguably I think we have a less obnoxious fan base than the Patriots. Uh, but it's the YouTuber Urinating Tree put out a really good tweet with this. The scene from Megamind where, after Titan supposedly defeats Megamind, and the city's like, oh, you saved us, and he goes, saved you guys? No, 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 no. More like under new management. He he flicks away the mayor and all that. I think that Urinating Tree got that completely right when that we had the Patriots for 20 years, and it sucked living under that evil empire. It's like, can't wait to tell my kids how awful that felt watching Brady in the playoffs every year. But I think this is what we're seeing from Mahomes. I think we're looking at probably another 10 years worth of dominance from this. I mean, things can go wrong, injuries can happen, stuff can happen, but as of right now, if another season started right now, they have my money for being the Super Bowl champs, the three-peat. They're getting their fifth Super Bowl, fourth in Mahomes' fourth in Mahomes' era. The Man, it's scary, but an incredible game, an incredible Super Bowl, two incredible teams. We've got a lot of storylines heading into next season. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode, or excuse me, this week's show of Sean on Sports. Again, I am your host, Sean P. I want to say real quick that we will not be back next week. We will not be on next week as I have a couple appointments that I will have to get through, or get to, and that will take me away from the show. So unfortunately, we will not have a show next week. But when we come back, I think that is the 28th, 27th or the 28th. When we come back for the 27th or the 28th, I think that, we're going to be in a real sports lull, but I think we're going to talk probably college basketball, and we're probably going to talk some NBA basketball. I'm going to see if I can get some guests on hand for that. We're going to have a really good time. But like I said, thank you everyone so much for tuning in and listening. Thank you for listening to me rant about my Chiefs and my team. But a wonderful and incredible Super Bowl, and in 2 weeks we should be back to pretty much normal. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Once again, have a safe and wonderful Tuesday. Have a safe and wonderful Valentine's Day Eve. We will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a great day, everyone.